You're fucking around. It's Wild Style Radio. Wild Style Radio.
What's up? And welcome to the Stand Up and Shout Rock Show with Whisk and Kev, coming to you live from Salisbury Center Studios in Manassas, Virginia, on the Wild Style Network, fueled by Monster Energy. What's up, man?
How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good.
We're starting off. I'm going to start off by saying we are looking sharp today, brother.
Can't look any better.
I know, right? We have always intentionally tried to unmatch t-shirts, and this is the first time we have come in matching, and we couldn't look better.
Wearing the swag.
Absolutely, of course. We are representing with the Stand Up and Shout Rock Show t-shirt.
Apparently representing to the TikTok viewers.
Representing to TikTok for the first time, first live
stream. It jumped up to 62 viewers already.
Woo-woo! All right. We are standing up and shouting. So thank you.
It's climbing.
Fellas.
Yeah.
We're climbing. Like
Sweet.
in the first few seconds. So we have to defer to John because evidently we are hitting a multiple live streams right now. It's our first episode where I can't remember. What are we on? Like 8 now, John?
Yeah, we're on a lot of different platforms right now. People can watch us
Don't
on.
defer to him. Defer to Daddy, who's paying for all this crap that John gets.
All right, so Daddy, go and tell him what are we on.
I don't know. All I know is I'm paying for it.
Well, it's on Instagram, so maybe Lizzie Hale's watching.
I would love that. I'd love that.
Yeah, so
Lizzie, we
Instagram,
love you.
Facebook. Sorry,
Over 100 people already are watching on TikTok.
135 currently
Nice.
on TikTok.
Welcome.
So yeah, we're on Kick,
Welcome,
TikTok,
TikTok,
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the major platforms, and then after the show, we're on all the major streaming podcast platforms, and then of course GetWylde.com and shop standupandshout.com to get the official Stand Up and Shout merch.
Yeah, we were talking about the merch and the shirts. I mean, that's
Right.
where Kevin and I were going as soon as we started talking, and I'm glad you mentioned the GetWylde.com. So if you're new to that site, it is Get Wylde, and it is spelled GetWylde. So it's a little bend on the word wild, GetWylde.com. And you can see all good merch, not only from the Standout Shout Rock Show, but also from Notebook Wagering and A Tribe Called Jess.
Yep, and you can get to it once you're on the main page by clicking the shop button. And it'll have a little drop down, and then there's an apparel button. Click that, and it lists all of the
good gear.
all the good gear, all the podcasts, all the Cagezilla, all the stuff on GetWylde.com.
Right on, right on.
Wild Style Network.
All right. Very cool. All right, we're going to get, I mean, that's all the great swag. So, that's if you want to look as good as us, that's the way to do it. But until then, we always invite everyone to join the conversation. Please feel to comment as we're talking because we like to hear your comments and make comments back if that is possible. But of course, if you're not watching in live time and you're watching this after the fact, keep making those comments because we'll get back to you. That's a promise.
For sure. So, how's your week been?
It's been very good. I think that we've had a lot of rock happenings. It's a good, meaty time of year. Summer
It is.
always brings that. Good live shows.
Yep.
I went to 3 live shows this weekend. I have to backtrack. So on Friday night, I feel like there is rock in this show. I'm not a big country fan, but I saw Chris Stapleton on Friday night. But of course, he brings a lot of rock. And
It was
soul into this.
packed.
It was like a Taylor Swift kind of effect in the crowd that was here.
I would say so.
Manassas.
It's always interesting seeing the comments on Facebook, the people that were there. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I think it was the place to be seen on Friday night.
And I got those tickets a long time ago. So it wasn't full at first, but it gradually filled up. And you couldn't see a blade of grass out on the lawn.
Yeah. Well, and he collaborated with Slash on Slash's new album, and that's a pretty killer tune.
It is.
Very, very much a rock vibe compared to. I mean, I've heard some of his stuff, and I'm definitely not a big Chris Stapleton fan, but it, like you said, it's got a rock tinge to it. Even though it's, I think folks would categorize it as country, but
Yeah, absolutely. And we then went to a show on Saturday night.
we did, yeah.
I'll let
Lita
you-
Ford.
Yeah, let you speak to that.
Saw
one.
Lita Ford at the Tally Ho. It's the second time we've seen her probably in the last 18 months.
Yep.
And just a phenomenal show again. She's great. And our friends, the Gavin Evick band opened up.
Absolutely.
They were good, and
great live show from that guys, and they're having their first headlining show this coming August at the Tally Ho Theater, and their tickets were released today. So if you're interested in the Gavin Evick band, and you know Pete Evick, of course, who plays with the Bret Michaels band, that is his son, and Gavin is definitely following in his footsteps, not only in the covers that he plays, but also in his original music. Great live show, great bunch of kids coming up. I call them kids just because I happen to be a little bit older than them, but
a little bit.
Great youthful energy coming out of, and I hope to exude as much youthful energy, Kevin.
Yes, we do try.
And then Sunday night, Pete was playing. We missed him up in Annapolis, Maryland, because I went to see Gary Clark Jr. at Wolf Trap. Had the Wolf Trap experience on a beautiful Sunday night. So. Great lawn, bring your coolers.
Yep.
Gary Clark was hitting, beast solos being Gary Clark. So I saw like a lot of good guitarists. It was almost like a guitar heavy, heavy hitting solo, guitar solo weekend.
Yeah. And did he play Come Together?
I did not.
No?
I was expecting that. In fact, I was expecting that in the encore. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting, maybe expecting a second encore with him coming out and playing that cover. He did not play that.
That's a Peloton favorite by a lot of the trainers. He's got a few other things you guys could play, but
of course he did Bright Lights Big City, and that was
awesome.
Probably the most popular song that he played.
Cool.
On the night.
Yeah. So you mentioned live music, and there's a bunch of live shows coming up, particularly here at the Salisbury Center. So we want to highlight those. July 12th, Night Train International is going to be here.
Yes.
And then the following night, Shot Through the Heart, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about the Bon Jovi tribute or the Bon Jovi documentary that recently was released.
And we've interviewed, to backtrack on both of those bands, we have interviews for both of those bands on our YouTube feed.
Correct.
And also you can find them through any of our social media because we've made posts about those interviews that are there. So we will look forward to talking to those bands again in the very near future.
Absolutely.
But until then, we've had great conversations with them in the past. So if you want to know more about those really excellent tribute bands, go again to our YouTube. Go find us, Stand Out and Shout Rock Show, on the Wylde Style Network. Look up specifically the Wylde Style Network, and you can see those interviews.
Yep. And then July 19th, the legendary band out of Canada, Anvil, is going to be here with Vicious Blade, Pulsifer, and our friends in Age of Ruin.
Absolutely.
And then let's not forget August 17th, the local Palooza show.
Yeah, baby.
So looking forward to that.
Featuring Days of Five.
Days of Five, Black Flag. I think we've heard of them before.
Yeah, Black Flag.
Yeah. They'll be headlining that show, Age of Ruin, our friends Knuckleheads and Cursor, and many, many more. So lots of good stuff coming up this summer.
Yeah,
so get out and catch the live music.
So I was really hyping up Cursor and the Knuckleheads. Of course, Age of Ruin, I've talked about with a lot of people here locally, but I think they're, because they have headlined here so many times, they're pretty well known. But the other two names, not as well known. But really, it's been a great pleasure watching those acts develop over the past year. They started out good, and they're becoming better and better and more great. So please come out to the local blues.
Check them out. Their music's out there. Cursor just released a new album. John and I were chatting about that, before the show, and I'm loving that new Cursor album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the album's phenomenal. I think they just dropped their music video for Canary, which was one of the songs we debuted or talked about during their show when they were on the podcast. But their set was just tight. Their sound is phenomenal live. Like, it's one of those, sometimes you hear a band's album and then you go live and it's, it's always missing something, but it felt like an album mixing them when they were here a few weeks ago.
Yep. I think they're heavily influenced by the Deftones, for ththose that would be new to the sound of the band. We talked about that with Cursor in their interview. They certainly acknowledged that. So, if you're into that style, that's what you'll be kind of hearing on the new Cursor album and in the older Cursor albums. It's not necessarily a deviation from anything that they've really put together in the past, but an excellent album. I'm with you, Kevin.
Yep. And it's Apparitions is the title. So if you want to check out some great new music that's kind of local to this area, go look for that. And I know Age of Ruin, we've talked about it on previous shows. They're getting ready to drop their new album too. So
sure.
Good new music coming out. And speaking of new music, did you hear the new Miles Kennedy track?
Yes, I did hear the new Miles.
It's awesome.
Yes, it is excellent.
Yep.
Yes, and I loved his last album, so looking forward to that. And yeah, so that's a winter tour.
It is a winter tour, just announced.
I was gonna say, I hate the fact that we're talking about that, 'cause we really we're getting the start of the beginning of the summer tours to come around. But that is the first winter show that I've seen, at least advertised in terms of ticket sales.
Sure. Well, there's the Aerosmith show too, but
Yes,
that's I guess that's more
fall.
Fall.
Yeah, I wasn't jumping to that yet, but that's after Christmas. So Miles is coming to Baltimore after Christmas, and of course, I have my tickets already. I'm not missing them.
Nope.
I always say that. That's another night. There's a few nights that I have to just do everything I can to hold on to my girlfriend, and that is one of those nights. If Miles would notice, she's gone. That's simple.
Cool.
Yeah. You said cool to that.
Well, Anyway, live music. So we talk a lot on the show about obviously music in general, but we've talked quite a bit about music documentaries.
I love a good rock doc, man.
Yes.
So so a couple have been released. Some are okay, but there are two outstanding rock docs that you and I started to talk about, outside of this environment. And I'm like, yeah, we got to talk about those on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
I want to kick off with Bon Jovi.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, and the name of that documentary
is Thank You, Good Night.
Thank You, Good Night. Yes, because
it's on Hulu exclusive.
Yes.
Hulu, and it's 4 parts.
Yes. And so I will warn you, if you're listening and you have not seen this documentary, we will give away a lot of spoilers, because we're going to talk about and kind of evaluate things that were said, from the Bon Jovi camp in this next conversation. So if you want to kind of pause in terms of, not being revealed with the documentary, you're excited to see this. This came out several months ago, so it's not necessarily, I feel like we're probably talking about a lot of people that are excited about this documentary would have already seen.
Yeah, and we shared, maybe John can bring it up, but we've got a trailer that we can show a little bit of video while we're talking, but yeah.
I got to start it.
I started watching it again.
I'm excited. Are we telling the truth, or are we going to lie?
Really
what are we going to do?
I think the first
There was no plan B in my life, ever. Bon Jovi was all or nothing.
5 guys from nowhere. And if you work hard enough and you dream big enough, you can make it.
There's some young kid around here from New Jersey who make.
Yeah.
And if you dive into this, what I've always felt, and I feel like I heard it from a Bon Jovi quote in media somewhere over the years, and he's been around for a long time. So there's been a lot of media, so I can't remember exactly where I heard it from, but he really kind of aspired to keep his band happenings close to the chest, almost like in a Sopranos kind of way. You keep things that happen in the family within the family,
sure,
and you don't reveal your dirt to the world. And I think that this was a first step to kind of uncovering some of the dirt between band members in Bon Jovi. And you would see things happen as people were either fired from the band or would leave the band, and that would be obvious to you as a fan.
Right.
But you really didn't get a lot of detail as to why those things were happening. And this, to me, was the first kind of taste as to really what was happening in all of those years in the Bon Jovi band.
Right. And, and obviously the big one is Richie leaving the band. And, when I started into it, there's the first episode has tons of video and interviews, and it kind of, for those that haven't seen it, it's kind of bouncing in and out of 2022 time frame as they were prepping for a 13 show tour.
Yes.
Which was John trying to test his voice to see, because been having a lot of vocal issues. I think it's been well publicized. He had vocal cord surgery.
Yes.
But they were trying to prep in anticipation of the 40th anniversary of the first album, and then doing a more celebratory 40th anniversary tour. So they kind of go in and out of these prepping for these shows, and then kind of flashing back in the history of the band. So the majority of that first episode, you hear from pretty much all the original surviving members except for Richie.
Yes.
So, I was thinking to myself, all right, well, I'm not sure we're going to get the full story when it gets to that point.
Yeah.
And then right at the tail end of the first episode, Richie walks in,
Richie
and it's like
reveal.
Okay.
All right.
And he's like, the quote was, "Are we lying or are we telling the truth?" And I'm like, all right, well, this should be interesting.
Yeah.
And, it's come out since where he's like, well, this was John's story.
Mm-hmm.
So, not everything was revealed.
Right.
So,
right.
But I thought it was good, great for those that know none of that history. I think it's a great way, particularly the younger fans that are into the band, to kind of learn a lot more about the history of the band.
And who would have ever known, as you mentioned, Kevin, how the story was framed? It didn't go to that straight, like the band started here and now it is there. And I almost felt like a lot of the documentaries that you see on rock bands follow the old VH1 behind the music format of like, we're starving, we're scrimping together, but we're brothers and we love each other. And then we rise the ranks and it's sex and drugs galore, and then you crumble because of it, and then you come back again, and that's how it kind of ends.
Right.
And it never followed that format.
No.
And I love that. And in fact, the whole way through, it documented the struggles of Bon Jovi being able to sing, which was stunning to me. Like that he was that open about surgeries that he's going through and therapies that he's going to be able to sing to an audience again. And the struggle that it is for him. And that I thought was very, very brave, on John Bon Jovi's part to really kind of show that to the public in a way that I've said they've never really done that before.
Yep. No, I agree. It was quite telling, quite revealing, and the effort and the physical therapy and everything he was going through just to try and get up on stage was quite amazing.
Yeah. And, to jump back to your point about Richie Sambora, I loved how they closed. I made a point to really kind of pay attention. And I've only did one go through of it, so I haven't seen it several times. But I did want to see, like, how was John Bon Jovi going to end speaking about Richie Sambora, who's been out of the band, I believe, 13 years now, at least over 10 years. And, it was John saying, basically, I miss him every day. And that was really then left at that, which was not, again, your normal approach to a documentary where it's like, F him and F him back, and we never want to see each other again.
Well, and it's certainly not relative to some of the other recent separations or breakups that we've been talking about.
Exactly, right.
So
right.
There's some friendliness there, but there's still some tension.
Right.
So like I said, I don't think we're getting 100% of the full story, but and even Richie said, he had to leave. He had family issues that he felt he needed to attend to, and that was why he left the band.
Right.
But he also has alluded that there were other things going on that made that departure decision easier.
Sure. Big tragedy also with Alec Van Such. That was also another, piece that really stood out to me, and how honest they were about his passing and his substance use and how that affected his life, and how strong of a member he was, because you can quietly kind of forget the bass player in the back, especially when you have two dudes as beautiful as John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora sitting in front of him. And that's no dig on the rest of the guys, but those others, they're very charismatic and very obvious in that way. And I think a lot of the fan base would acknowledge that.
Well, no doubt.
Right. But then you see the importance of him, as the bassist, and the loss that it had on them. And just really good stuff. I said, like, the most open that I've ever seen any information come from that band. The most open and direct and very revealing about Bon Jovi.
Yeah, it's great. So if you haven't seen it, it's on Hulu. So go check it out.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, thank you. Good night. Yeah, so then the other documentary that we've fallen in love with, and I guess in terms of the summer, we were talking about summer outdoor shows that we were at this weekend, and a lot of things that we've been doing in terms of getting out and seeing live music. I guess this is when it rains. You're going to be sitting inside and watching these 3-part that was a 4-part documentary. This is a 3-part documentary simply called Lala. So it would be the first part of the word Lollapalooza, about the Lollapalooza Festival. That is ongoing. I can say that really it was in its heyday in its 90s, but it took a good examination of the evolution of that festival over 3 hours. So it was a quick documentary. John's bringing some of it up. Yes.
Yes, again and again and again. So yeah, that was phenomenal, because Lollapalooza, and granted, it was one of the first festival formats, which actually started out as a tour in the U.S.
Yeah.
South by Southwest down in Austin, it had been going on for a little while prior to that, but everything since Coachella,
Yes.
all of the
Bonnaroo,
all of the summer festivals came out because of Lollapalooza.
Absolutely.
So they, and it was, obviously that was right in our young adult phase when that all started, and we've been to them. I went to the third one. I think you went to a couple of them.
I did. I went to, yes.
And the Perry Farrell really just kind of shows the vision that he had when he formed this tour.
Yeah.
And the festival, and very much so wanted it to be alternative and focus on art and performance, and it cost a little bit as it went on because he wanted to stick to that format. And I'd say now it's kind of evolved and changed a little bit, now that it's in Chicago, the one location every year. But he was a true visionary in terms of coming up with this format and sticking to his guns to ensure that his vision didn't get changed by either the record companies that were pushing on, putting certain bands on the bill, and it was his baby.
Sure. So I this one, obviously it hit me because we had a conversation about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame many episodes ago, but it was during this year, right? And I asked you, and we talked about it. If you had to pick one band to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who would it be? For me, it was Jane's Addiction. And this documentary explains that to the teeth, like why that band stood out to me as one that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I'll also make this review because I'm doing this with old friends, and you guys goof on me because I can be emotional. And I certainly, when I was younger, I was even more emotional than, from time to time. And I was watching this first episode, the first episode of a 3-hour documentary. So a third of this was dedicated to the first Lollapalooza.
Yep.
They didn't talk about anything but the 1991 Lollapalooza and how special and magical that was, especially for Jane's Addiction. And it was that as that was happening, my girlfriend was with me, and she looked at me and she goes, "Are you going to cry?" And I was like, "I'm damn close." Because it was a love letter to Jane's Addiction, and it was a love letter to, you said, the vision of having a festival like this, which was so different than anything at the time.
Well, and yeah, absolutely. And now, it's kind of, over in Europe that had been going on for years.
Right. That's where they stole the idea.
Yeah. Monsters of Rock, Castle Donington. And they kind of did it as a tour, but for the most part, these festival formats haven't succeeded too much as a tour.
No.
I know there were spin-offs, and they talked a little bit about that in one of the episodes. Ozfest kind of spun up, and that was the metal version of Lollapalooza.
Sure.
But they never really seemed to have tremendous success as a tour.
Right.
And they speak to that too, that it was becoming a struggle to try and take that on the road.
Right.
But
that, I vividly remember that day in my life of going to that first Lollapalooza festival in terms of a concert goer. We were concert goers then as we were now, and we wouldn't miss anything. And I walked into Lake Fairfax, of all places, not even a major venue, that day of, and I bought a ticket there and walked in. It was that, you wouldn't take that, or you would take that for granted now. Like I just can't imagine, like, ever as a kid with really no money, being able to, like, walk up to a window and, like, pay cash and see that many quality bands in this really kind of small lake area. It was stunning. And it was, they really did a good job describing the coming of age of Generation X and grunge, and and I go back to that for me too. So that's when I always said Jane's Addiction really changed the way I listen to music. It wasn't necessarily even just Jane's Addiction, but I thought that first episode was really good at pointing out, we always talk about the Nirvana revolution, and we've talked about it in a lot of ways with a lot of different bands here on this show. And that was just another example of something happening before. Really, Nirvana was just almost an after effect of many things that were happening in and around that time. And all of the artists that have played Lollapalooza, basically, like throughout that documentary, have basically acknowledged it was really Jane's Addiction that ignited the alt-rock movement as opposed to Nirvana. Nirvana just kind of came along later. For me, I go back, there's a lot of California-based alt-rock that came out before them. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Fishbone, Primus. So those bands were pumping out albums before there ever was a Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Sure.
And that was even a part of that, right? Like their struggles with maintaining the integrity of alt-rock and having it be alt-rock at Lollapalooza. And then Nirvana comes around later, and they want to get Nirvana to play a later Lollapalooza. I believe it was the 4th Lollapalooza. Yep. And they were struggling with their own identity towards having it be genuinely alternative when there's this mainstream acceptance of it. So I just thought it just hit that really well, how that first one was lightning in the bottle.
Right.
That changed the world, and it was really cool. And then also, I think it's still shocking to see the evolution of the festival where it only happens in Chicago now, and there's a lot of mainstream acts, pop acts, so to speak, that are at that festival, and how they can explain why that is.
Yeah, and the other, obviously being huge Metallica fans, the other piece that I thought was really cool about that was, obviously they played, I think it was the 96 Lollapalooza, which is I guess the 6th one. And, the person was like, Metallica is going to headline Lollapalooza. What the
Yeah.
And Perry Farrell, was pretty open. He's like, yeah, I didn't like that idea. And he didn't even show up for any of them.
Right.
But then, a couple of years back, they headlined Chicago.
Sure.
And, so it was interesting because, they do talk about how, Metallica had kind of broken big at that point, but they were true alternative. They were an underground band.
Sure, right.
That,
just in a different way.
In a different way. And, working in college radio at that time, all of these bands, even before Lollapalooza started, were being played at the radio station. And Metallica was pretty well known in the metal circles by that point, but that's how they kind of broke too, was through college radio and pushing that. So,
Absolutely.
they were born of an alternative style. And, then when they kind of flash forward to Metallica playing there the second time, where Perry actually came out and he's like, yeah, I was wrong about that.
Yeah. I struggled with that too. I did not go to that Lollapalooza.
Right.
That was the one that broke it for me. That was I am not going to this. It turned into something that I never wanted it to be. And it was just because I think really, probably looking back on that, it was the popularity of Metallica. And also, it's a different crowd. It is a metal crowd that's going to come in. You don't know if they're going to appreciate the alternative acts that are in front of them. But yeah, I think that you and I, we see that, and we go to a lot of different musical styles, at least in terms of rock styles that are out there. And there's still people that are out there who are like that, right?
Right.
I think that we even say that about our show. Do you guys cover glam rock from the 80s? Do you guys cover indie or alt rock? Or do you cover thrash? And I only wanted to hear thrash. I only want to talk about thrash. I only want to hear this. And I think that you really close yourself off to a lot of really good stuff. So in that Perry Farrell way of coming around and accepting, I feel like that myself. And I thought about that I'll tell you, I'll struggle about this with Lady Gaga, because I'm not a pop fan, really and I would not listen as a rock fan to many Lady Gaga songs, but it seems what she does live is very innovative and on the fringe of, a lot of what others would do while they're touring and on a live stage.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to watch. And you see that almost when she fronted Metallica, because remember she did that with Moth into a Flame.
Yep.
And it was bitching. And I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh God, this is going to be painful. And it was the exact opposite reaction.
It was good.
Yeah. So I think that spirit, I think, lives on in a lot of festivals. We're going to talk about another one coming up, in a little bit. But if, getting back, I guess this gave us the opportunity, at least for me, to talk about my love of the Lollapalooza Festival, especially during those times, because it was amazing. And that first one I feel is lightning in a bottle. And I love that I think that documentary really captured that So that's on Paramount Plus, and it's called Lala.
Yeah, the story of Lollapalooza, I think, is the subtitle.
The subtitle.
It's fantastic. So another one, if you haven't seen it, and definitely check it out.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
All right. So we can shift gears and get into a little herd and word.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're, again, on one of these newer streaming platforms, kind of newer to what Kevin and I do, we kind of game it up a little bit, and we talked about some documentaries. We spent a good, 20 minutes to a half hour chatting up 2 documentaries. So Kevin and I can do this kind of thing and just keep talking about all the good things that are happening in rock and roll. But we do, sometimes we approach things in a gaming format. This is a gaming format that we call herd and word. So anything that we hear out there, we bring up in a 1-sentence format, and then we fill in a word that best fills the spirit of the sentence, and then we can justify why we came up with that fantastic word. I'm excellent at this because I'm very poetic. I'm not going to say much more about Kevin.
All right.
All right.
Going to hit the first one?
All right, yes. This is kind of a bigger picture sentence, but it comes from a specific place in the news.
Yes.
An artist should feel blank when a fan wears a former band's T-shirt at their current performance. All right, so this is the sentence is under the assumption that an artist is not performing with a band they were once with, and you still, as a fan, and I think I'm going to approach this, I'm going to warn you with my word, I'm going to approach this from the vantage point of a fan, not as the artist. So if you're a fan out there, an artist should feel blank when a fan wears a former band's T-shirt at their current performance. Well, you want to go with yours first?
Sure. So, and I think I'm coming at it from a fan's point of view for sure.
Yeah.
But my word is honored.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
And, obviously we've got a link in here.
You see a link at the bottom. John's got it up.
Yep. And it's
From
specific.
loudersound.com.
Yep. And it's specific to a recent show. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a little bit about, we've talked a little bit about the fact that Lizzie Hale stepped in to fill the role as lead vocalist with Skid Row.
It was amazing.
Yep.
That would be a poor word. That was not a poetic and well-planned word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's better than amazing.
Replacing Eric Grunwald.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm hitting
Grunwald.
Grunwald.
You got to get your umlauts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting the umlauts in. Who had to leave the band due to some health issues. And so she filled in to finish the 4 or 6 dates they had left on some previously scheduled events. And Sebastian Bach, the most well-known singer.
Of course.
He was actually the second singer in the band.
Yes.
But when they
put out 2 bitchin' albums.
Yes.
With Skid Row.
Well, when they broke big and on their first 2 releases, he was the vocalist. I think he's been quite vocal about the fact that they won't bring him back into the band. And that, so specific to this article, at a recent show, there were a number of fans there who paid to see Sebastian Bach, who was doing his own solo music, but also most of the Skid Row classics. And basically
John's got a picture
started
of him flipping off the crowd.
Berating
there's visual. Yes.
the people wearing Skid Row shirts at his show. And there's a video that's also in this article where he's like, why the hell would you wear that shirt here?
I got notes, man. I'm not normally notes, but because I like to go to the quotes here. So I go with the first quote. Yeah, that's the band that kicked me out. Yeah, Killer Great. Fucking assholes. I'm fascinated by that shirt right here, he tells an audience member. This is Skid Row with what number singer? 7, 8, 9. What number's that guy? Huh? What number? Is that a replacement number 7, number 8, or number 9? And before you say, well, I don't have 9, I can fucking name every fucking one of them. And even, do you even wear that? It's fucking ridiculous. Is that guy from Dragon Force or fucking TNT or whatever the fuck? Fucking embarrassing.
Kind of dinging on Tony Harnell.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So look, I'm coming from the fan point of this. My word was acknowledged. I go like to Guns N' Roses and Slash with this. And I know that when I was going to see Slash perform, when he was, in any kind of solo format, I may not have had a Slash shirt, but I would wear a Guns N' Roses shirt. It's kind of like us wearing our shirts right now. I think like in the rock community especially, the shirts their colors. You know, that's a badge of community for sure. So, and you do that like when we go out, Kevin, and we wear short shirts just not even at a rock show, but just in public. You know this. People come up and they'll say like, "Oh, you're a fan of, I am too," and you share those experiences. And so it makes it special. It's just an instant community builder. So the shirt is important, which is why you should have a Stand Up and Shout rock show shirt.
That's
because
right.
You all can then like talk about all the great times you've listened to the Stand Up and Shout rock show together. It's just a part of all of that. But getting back to this piece, if I was wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt to a Slash show, it wasn't because I was pro Axl. Wasn't that for me. In fact, it was the opposite. I was trying to show that I was a part of Slash's community. I was acknowledging him.
Right.
It was the exact opposite of how this was taken by Sebastian Bach. So I don't understand it. I don't understand why somebody, and I'm sure that fan was hurt in some way. You know, I'm not saying like he sat there and like cried on.
Well, he didn't throw a bottle at him.
Exactly right. But that is, and fans are acknowledged by band members for sure, right? Like everybody loves to talk to a band member if that they're given that opportunity. They're going to love that experience. And he went the exact opposite road of that. Like, would you buy a Sebastian Bach shirt if you were wearing a Skid Row shirt and he did that to you? Would you be inclined to go out then and buy the shirt that he wanted you to wear?
Well, certainly not after that.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's just shooting yourself in the foot at that point.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which he has a propensity to do way too often.
In which we've had that conversation, when we were talking about Lizzie Hale and his reaction to Lizzie Hale fronting that band. Which I even say outside of, the performance, just the actual performance, I think what enhanced that performance and the reaction and the strong reaction from fans to Lizzie Hale fronting that band was her understanding and appreciation of the music itself. And she really had strong chemistry because of it, because she loved that music so much and even appreciated Sebastian Bach and everything that he did in those vocals and those albums back in the day, and really tried to pay true homage to that, but then be herself at the same time. So it was very disappointing, I feel like, in this one. So we're starting off maybe on a sour note. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. All right, maybe we'll pick it up with the next one. What we got next, John? All right, Blank should be fronting Skid Row right now. So with all that being said about Skid Row, we got like a lead in. Like, who's going to bring that positivity? We know it's not going to be Lizzie, because Lizzie has just said like she's appreciated and I appreciate this about Lizzie Hale, that she's got other things going on. I personally am glad she's going back to Hailstorm. I love Hailstorm, but I also love Skid Row. And I love that it worked out where Lizzie Hale could front Skid Row for a temporary little chunk of time. And we all got to see some of it. At least we saw the video of it.
Sure.
It's the best we could do. I wish I could have been there live.
Yeah. No, I mean, she was fantastic. Really, like you said, she did true homage to the music. And I would love to see her playing with them, because I think it would be a killer show. And but at the same time, because we've talked about this, I love Hailstorm.
Yeah.
And they have a new album out. They just announced a new tour.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping they're going to come through this area so we can see them again.
Absolutely.
And I'd be disappointed if there would be no more Hailstorm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
absolutely. I'm 1,000% with you there. Then I feel like you have and Skid Row's a great band, and we love Skid Row.
Yep.
So, it's not going to be Sebastian Bach, very obviously, because he's gone down the path that he's gone down in terms of his reaction to all this, and probably that piles on to even more. We talk about documentaries. We saw that, to me, that was very evident with Dave Sabo and I Want to Rock.
Sure,
he was speaking to his difficulties with Sebastian Bach. It doesn't seem like there's any type of reconciliation in the near future. You said that about Axl and Slash at one point, but they did reconcile.
They did, yep.
I mean, the rumors in the winds, they kind of say that a lot of money's being thrown at Skid Row to reunite with Sebastian Bach. Sebastian Bach, that's still not, happening for him. So there's other bands that are out there too, right? So I have some singers that to me are filling in as vocalists for hire, so to speak. So this was Oni Logan for the Lynch Mob, who's available right now.
Yep.
So he's available. Andrew Freeman, Last in Line. Last in Line's not the only band he fronted, right? Like he was with Great White for a little while. And then, of course, Brett Carlisle, who's currently with Great White, the non-Jack Russell version of Great White, because they can't reconcile either. So I feel like there's some guns for hire that are
Well, that
out
would
there.
mean Mitch Malloy would be available too, because he was in that version of Great White the last time we saw them.
That's another good point.
Yep.
Yeah. So like they hit my list. This would be the scary list. I think that this could work, at least in terms of the vocal style, but this would be like a Lizzie Hale situation. Like the interesting one for me is Mark LaBelle from Dirty Honey.
No.
And that's my reaction to that one also. I hear my girlfriend cringing with me saying that out loud also. Because we are such Dirty Honey fans, like Hailstorm.
Yeah.
We want Dirty Honey to keep being Dirty Honey.
For sure.
So I'm 1,000% with you there too.
Well, I guess, if I had to pick a name, it was not necessarily directed one way or the other that Eric Grunwald won't come back.
Okay. All right.
So, if his health is to improve, which it sounded like that was a possibility, then, seeing him with them, I think that would be my preference right now. If they could reconcile it, I would love to see Sebastian back in that band, but I just don't think
it does. Right. I would like to see Sebastian be happy. Beyond that, I would like to see him be okay with people wearing Skid Row shirts in front of him and him excited and feel acknowledged because that's happening.
Yep.
That would be the ideal world. But so the name, I went deep on this one. I went a little deep on my name, and that is Nick Reese. And he was a singer of a band, Joyous Wolf. And they were coming up to me around the same time that Dirty Honey really started, out of Los Angeles. And Joyous Wolf is still around, but he has left the band. Now, I have to say, because it's a little bit out of our wheelhouse here on the East Coast, I don't necessarily know the news or gossip or any of the information surrounding that. But I really liked him as a vocalist, and he was a charismatic frontman. It wouldn't necessarily go into the list of guns for hire that are out there. And I really love that band. I love the EP that they put out. And I thought that they were really kind of on the same trajectory as Dirty Honey. In fact, they toured together, Dirty Honey and Joyous Wolf. So I think that could be a possibility. If he's floating around out there, I don't know the circumstances or reasons or what he's up to now. But it could be an easier fit, right, than some of these other vocalists for hire that are out there and doing great with the bands that they're fronting. So that's why I went with Nick Reese on this selection.
Got it.
Yeah. All right. I think it's a tough call either way. I think that really what Lizzie Hale brought out is that you have to appreciate what you're doing and not just be up there singing the words, but really loving the words that you're singing. All right. So getting back to festivals, this was big news in our area over the last week. And I feel that in terms of Lollapalooza, something that happened here in the DC area that was magical in and around that same time period, was what was known as the WHF Festival. And WHFS was a radio station that's no longer in existence that was the premier alt-rock radio station in the 90s. So that really adopted the bands and the music that was coming out of Lollapalooza, playing it on the radio here, and they developed their own local festival. And the festival really mushroomed over the 90s into something special. And we have an article here from Axios.com, and the sentence is, "The return of the HF Festival in Washington, D.C. has me feeling blank."
Meh.
That's a great word. Yours better than my word. I'll give you that. I dogged you in the beginning, but that one's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so I went with conflicted. I feel like we're probably we're in lockstep in a lot of these topics.
Yep. So I'll say that when IMG 930 Club tweeted out 2 weeks ago that HF Festival was coming back,
Sure.
I was jacked.
Yes.
Because
Thrilled
because knowing some of the bands that had traditionally taken part in HF Festival,
amazing,
that are now huge.
Yes.
And ironically, didn't have anything going on during the time frame of when this show is happening.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters.
We were expecting the Foo Fighters.
Yes.
I mean, this was just breathe smooth. Man, I cannot talk to that. Just breathe Foo Fighters left and right.
Yeah, or Jimmy's Chicken Shack being involved because they played there quite often.
Yep.
So I was very, very excited. And I'm like, all right, this is going to be awesome. Because we were talking about, how Foo Fighters kind of skated through the East Coast and didn't stop in D.C. where Dave Grohl is from.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is when it's going to happen.
Sure.
And then the lineup came out the other day. And I'm like, it's good.
Yeah.
But there's only 2-3 bands that me personally, I would like to see, and they're all at the very beginning of the bill.
The lineup is Postal Service is headlining. I'm going from reverse, order here with a headliner.
Who in the hell is that?
I think, did they have 2 albums or 1? No more than 2.
That's 0 as far as I'm concerned.
You got Postal Service, Death Cab for Cutie, which
Wah.
So I think that maybe describes the tone of their music. So in terms of like an outdoor festival, an uplifting outdoor festival, I like Death Cab for Cutie, but you're not really getting an uplift. A band that I love now for me is Incubus, Bush, Garbage, Jimmy Eat World, Girl Tonic, Violent Femmes, which was in one of the original HF festivals.
In 91.
91, yes. Tonic, Filter, and Lit.
Yeah. So Incubus and Bush and Tonic and Filter and Lit. Mm-hmm. For me, those are the bands that kind of, I'm like, all right.
Sure.
So I'm like, yeah, I'm not really.
So I'm conflicted in this too, because I want to see this succeed. I want to see the HF Festival come back and you get what we were talking about in the first Lollapalooza. You get a little bit of that lightning in a bottle and the way that it used to be. And on our social media feed today, I happened to come across a 930 Club post, where they did a throwback to an MTV News clip from 1994 about the HF Festival. And one of the things that really jumped out to me was 15 bands for $15. That was the advertising line. Is you got 15 bands back in that day for 15. Right. And the cheapest ticket at this one without fees is $150 for those back end seats. So you tack on the fees and you're probably looking at close to $200 per ticket for the back end, not necessarily going up into the higher price tickets, which are at $250.
Right.
So where did that come into play in terms of the spirit of the HF Festival with it being such an expensive ticket? I know the times have changed, but do they have to change that drastically?
Well, and to be honest, if they're going to succeed, I think you need at least one bigger name.
Sure.
But
for that price tag. I saw an interview on a local news station, and they had one of the festival organizers that they were speaking to and asking about those ticket prices, and they really kind of pressed him about the target audience. And unlike past festivals, the target audience, he basically admitted that they were 40 to 60-year-olds with expendable income. So again, looking
you
at...
kind of have to be to pay those prices.
Absolutely. So in the spirit of an alt-rock festival like Lollapalooza, you completely missed it. So if you want a great festival, local festival with great local music, you can't beat Local Palooza here at the Salisbury Center on Saturday, August 17th with Black Flag headlining.
So you totally missed something on that I wanted to comment.
Okay.
So they announced it, and I was like all excited for HF Festival. Thought it was going to be awesome again. Then I saw, oh, crap, it's September 24th, same day as TCB.
Oh.
I was like, should I move TCB up or back a week?
Look, by the way, I could have missed this because I didn't know you were thinking all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they announced it, and I was like all excited to hear who was going to be there. Kind of could have been kind of cool if they had some decent bands. They announced it. I'm like, nah, I'm definitely not moving anything. That lineup sucks. Violent Femmes is the only one that I would want to see out of all of them. Like the other ones, if I was at a concert and saw Bush, Lit, that's Filter, that's fine.
If you were at a concert and saw Bush,
yeah, I'll be fine with seeing Bush at a concert for sure. But you know what I mean? Like if I was already there for some other cool bands, it would have been fine. But I'm definitely not making a trip out there. Maybe I'll go out and see Violent Femmes, then come to the fight. Since they're on early, because that's the only one worth anything for me.
Yeah, but
you would have to pay like $300 to do it. I mean, that's the other flip side to that. Just that price.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like the festivals that are out there. So like Sonic Temple.
Yes.
Even if you just go to a single day, you're paying that kind of money.
Yes.
But you're getting a whole lot more music.
Sure. Right.
So it's like,
I wonder if I
don't know if it's just a cash grab.
Friday night before.
You're right. Right. Yeah.
To me, it's almost like they're just reaching for a cash grab real quick. And
Well, and I want to see that succeed, but it's not in the same vein of the old HF festival, and that's why I'm conflicted. That's why I get back to the word conflicted.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like they were parrying those in the Lollapalooza documentary, saying the times have changed.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
right.
What
do you think about the lottery system for the tickets? I mean, then there's that. There's another bend to this, which we've seen. We went through this time last year with the opening of the Atlantis, that club that's an offshoot of the 930 Club, where they were getting the Foo Fighters and other large acts to kick off this small venue. And we had to go into this lottery system, which is the same lottery system that they're using to purchase tickets.
So is the $250 ticket, is that reserved in the lower portion of Nats Park, or is that $250 to be on the field closer to the stage?
So there's two. And that's the same ticket price.
Because I couldn't make heads or tails out of the pricing. And
so basically there's $250 for both, what you just described. So $250 is for the standing room pit, which is going to be a very small amount of tickets. That's just the immediate area in front of the stage. So you have to win the lottery. So you agree to pay your $250 for the ticket, and then Sunday they reveal whether or not you got a ticket there. And then if you don't, then you can agree to go on a waiting list. So if somebody decides to sell back the ticket, so to speak,
using that new Ticketmaster format where you cannot
scalp the tickets. Right. Correct. Yes. But for the seats, you don't know where your seats are going to be, which I feel is conflicting again, because you have a large block of seated area behind that. But there's sometimes we'll look at tickets, right? And we'll see a map of tickets and we decide we may buy them here. We may not buy them there at the same price.
Right.
But you don't know what you're going to get in the lottery.
Well, I would think festival, I want to be in the crowd anyway, so I wouldn't want to be in a seated seat behind, the pit or the field crowd.
Yeah.
So it's like, why don't you just make all of that?
Yeah.
And that's GA, and if you want seats, then you go in and you can lottery yourself that way if you want.
Sure. I feel like this is not going to be the first time we have. I think we're going to be talking about this over the next several months to see how this all plays out, because I'm just curious to see if it does sell on Sunday, if it completely sells out on Sunday, if there is going to be enough of a lottery waiting list to fill the lottery. And then what happens if you don't? You just enter the lottery then afterwards, or do they open up a seat map? I don't know.
I guess they'll sell tickets, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. We just have to kind of wait and see how this all keeps playing out.
All right. Meh.
All right. So I wish it would be better. And if worst comes to worst, just watch the first episode of Lollapalooza on Paramount, or Lala on Paramount Plus, and you'll see the spirit of what a good alt festival should look like.
So then our last one.
Speaking of summer.
Yes.
You want to read this one? I read the other three.
Blank is the summer tour show that I'm most looking forward to seeing.
I know. So we're having a local bias here because there's a lot of summer tours that are floating around the country. So this is stuff that's sitting in front of my face. So the list, the little short list that I have, that the first one is Sammy Hagar and Loverboy, which I'd love to be able to go to, but I got Days of 5 rehearsal in Richmond that day, so I'll be down in Richmond. I can't go to that. Otherwise, I'd love to be going. Styx and Foreigner, Creed, The Struts, Primus, Coheed and Cambria, Buckcherry, and Weezer are some artists that I have on my list. You got others outside of that one?
Buckcherry.
I didn't know, because Buckcherry is actually early September.
It's close enough to summer.
Yeah, I drew the line at September 21st, so which also happens to be the HF Festival. So I called that fall, after that. So, but summer, you feel summer. It's the party, it's the outdoors, it's the lawns, all that kind of stuff. These kind of fall in line for that. So is Buckcherry you're filling the blank?
It is.
All right. So, and the other one that where I really want to go with this, Days of 5, local palooza at the Salisbury Center.
I figured that was on your list.
I omitted it from the list because it was so important, because if this was on my list, that would absolutely be number one. I don't know. What do you think there, Mr. Salisbury? I see you
Of course.
All right, there we go.
That's the number one concert to look forward to this summer.
Right. So it's so obvious that I had to pull it
Black
off the
Flag
list.
opening for Days of 5.
Exactly. Remember how we used to play video games back in the 90s, and we play sports games against each other, and there was always used to be one massive team that was awesome.
Yeah.
And we had these agreements nobody can play that team. It
The
would
all
be
Madden team?
Yeah, exactly. Right. You can't play the all Madden team because you're just gonna whoop everybody's ass because it's the all Madden team. Like you got to pick from the other teams. That's kind of my approach to this. So that's Local Palooza's the all Madden team, just so you know.
Of course.
All right. I'm conflicted on this because Buck Cherry's up there for me. I'm gonna go with the Struts. But because I loved seeing the Struts the last time I saw the Struts.
I heard rumblings out here. Somebody's in trouble.
I know, right? Yeah. And I got to like deal with my girlfriend, and the fascination with Josh Todd and, and all of that. That's part of the, I get a little work when I go see Buck Cherry. But Buck Cherry, it is at Charlestown Races and Slots, which is a great summer party atmosphere and environment.
Sure.
So look, that's strong. That's my conflict between those two shows, and I'm going to go with the Struts.
You could hang out at the paddock before you go to the show.
By the way, I've seen the Struts open for the Foo Fighters. Just doing another. But right, I could hang at the paddock, and the paddock's always a good time. You guys are like all peer pressuring me to hell to bend it to change it back to Buck Cherry. Buck Cherry is always a great live show, so you're not going to go wrong there. But so are the Struts.
Well,
That's another great live show.
And Dirty Honey could always throw in a local area show. They haven't been here in a while.
That's very true. I would love that.
That would change everything.
I absolutely would change everything. Yeah, no doubt. You got anything there, Mr. Salisbury? You can't wait to see?
I was going to say, if we're going to do Dirty Honey in this area, maybe we need to get some investors together and
right?
get them at the Salisbury Center, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
You going to put in a couple dollars toward that?
No.
Let's put it on a Kickstarter.
I will, and I'll open.
There you go.
You're
buying your opening slot.
Exactly. That's my ticket.
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, so there we go. I hope to add that to the list. We can end on that note.
For sure.
All right. So, of course, as always, when it's time for us to wrap up, we've lost John.
Yeah. Well, and we're looking forward
John has
to
bubble guts, probably.
Looking forward to some comments. I know we picked up a larger audience for the live shows tonight, so hopefully we can continue to grow that. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show. We want to hear your comments on topics or thoughts on the show, and we will respond to them and build it into the show.
Absolutely. So, please, again, if you're not listening or commenting live right now, please do not hold back from doing so at any point, because we're more than happy to do so. And also, don't forget to go to getwylde.com, GETWYLDE.com, because you're going to find some spiffy-looking new shirts there that you'll be proud to wear at any rock show. Multi-platform rock shows, glam rock, alt rock, thrash, hardcore, grindcore, death metal.
Melodic death metal. Any of those good things, please, get your Stand Up and Shout Rock Show shirt going. Show your colors. Right.
John's going to die before the end of the show, though.
John, you got 2 more shows to do.
He had to run to his truck because the alarm was going off, so now he's...
Damn.
I'm good.
All right. So that's a wrap. We will see you on the next one.